Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting podcast here on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel. Easy for you to say, Doug. And speaking of Doug, we're joined by Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, like we are every Thursday afternoon. Today, we're going to be discussing Major League Baseball. We're going to be taking a look at a couple of American League matchups in games on Friday, the 19th. So we're taping 24 hours in advance, folks. So keep that in mind when you view the video, because the lines we use on today's show might be they will be subject to change depending on the time that you view the video. Anyway, Doug, got a little long-winded there before I said hello to you. My apology, but how are you?
Hey, no problem. And by the way, for those not sure, it's Podcast, podcast. Okay, so we got that out of the way, from that standpoint. So no, that's what you stumbled on. You were right, isn't that what you were saying? I'm just joking with you, Ross. I'm just
okay. I thought I
having fun. No, that's just me. You know how that goes.
It doesn't take me much to make me laugh anyway, Doug, as you well know. So yeah. Anyway,
so it's been an interesting couple of days, in sports, that's for sure. The basketball has been, I guess, surprising, from that standpoint, and in baseball, the amount of bullpens blowing leads this week has just been astronomical. I mean, it's pretty bad anyways. But and we're not talking just, like almost every day now, it's at least 5 or 6. And in some cases, in 5 or 6 games. And then in some cases, within those games, they blow it both ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just been wild. Okay. From that standpoint. And scoring's up and all that. I read a good article on that. Scoring's up quite a bit in terms of the highest levels in decades. Okay. From that standpoint. So, reflective of, I would say that as well. Okay. Just the bullpen. A lot of the ERAs aren't terrible, but there's a few teams, but boy, it's just crazy. You think you're in your bets, you think you got something, you got a three-run lead, and all of a sudden, bottom of the ninth or top of the ninth, gone. We're just seeing it so often.
Yeah, game comes to mind last night. Somebody hit a 3-run homer down 1 in the 9th inning, and I can't remember who.
Yeah, was it the Mets?
Yes, it was the Mets against Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Alvarez hit a bomb into the second deck and left center for a 3-run homer. So good for them. The Mets are a team that's vastly underachieving right now. And Tampa Bay is good. I think they're overachieving a little bit. I don't think there's any way possible they're going to continue to play at the winning pace they're at right now. But we'll see. Again, underestimating the Tampa Bay Rays, who's done that over the last decade? Many of them.
The other thing too that's hurting them right now too is the number of starting pitchers that they're missing. That's same with the Braves. Same deal. But when you just have to go to your bullpen so frequently, it's just you're asking for trouble. That's basically what it is, as opposed to controlling it.
Yeah, and you mentioned the struggling bullpens over the last week. Giving up leads. And I would highly advise folks, when you handicap a game, you can't look at a bullpen ERA for the entire season. You can, but I like to look at what's going on recently. You get a lot of bullpens to get off the good starts, and then all of a sudden they hit a wall, and then they regain their form. Then they hit another wall. Keep an eye on, I like to look at the last 7 games, because I look at Fox Sheets, who I think does a terrific job with that. And if both bullpens in a game you don't deem to be very good, or even one bullpen isn't good at all, and you got 2 starting pitchers you really like, you might want to look at the menu option of betting the first 5 innings on a total, or going under. I had a winner last week. I can't remember the exact game, but I did have the under in the first 5, Doug, and it ended up in the game itself went over the total. That was a textbook example. I wish I could recall the exact matchup, but I can't. but something the folks should be looking at on occasion.
Yeah, or that's a great point, and in fact, that might be something I might even be talking about today, Ross, from
Yeah.
that standpoint for the free play. But yeah, I mean, it's just you just keep seeing it, and it just keeps coming up over and over and over again. And a great example to your point is that like the Cubs bullpen started out really well. Okay, I
Right.
mean, and they had a variety of guys pitching well and everything. Well, they've struggled. The Cubs have struggled lately. Well, lo and behold, in the Cubs' last 11 games, the bullpen has given up 46 runs.
Yep.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
unless your offense is as good or better than Tampa Bay's in a period of time, you're in trouble. And
Yeah.
last night was a perfect example. Cubs up 6-1 in the bottom of the eighth, end up losing the game 7-6. So it just gave it away, and like I said, it just and that's really hard. I don't know how much you look at VEASAN stuff, but guy, I presume you talked to him over the years, if not for different reasons. But Steve Makinen, who was one of the original people that started StatFox many years ago, and Steve now works for VEASAN, and he comes up with a lot of he always has a lot of different ways of looking at things, stuff like that. One of his new things that he's working on is bullpen stats. Okay. And is to, from a handicapping perspective, as to how to use these to help yourself, in that regard, because starting pitching has become less and less of a factor. And so it's kind of the idea is to blend the two together is what his thinking is. And so it's not an exact science yet, but it's an interesting topic, from a sports betting perspective to try and get into and trying to learn more, because that could be really beneficial for your wins and losses.
I like to think I've been doing that over the last couple of years anyway, but I would be interested to hear what he says in terms of what he looks at in regards to bull. I see, to me, I keep it simple. Whatever your bullpen ERA and WHIP is, WHIP to me, like I said, Doug, you mentioned ERAs ain't all that bad. A true indicator of a bullpen that might be going south is when they have a staff ERA of 3.22 over the last 7 games, but their WHIP is 152.
Right.
That's a bullpen that's wiggling out of a lot of jams, and if they continue to flirt with disaster, it's a matter of time before it catches up to them. So little things like that is what I look for. Other things, I'll look at how many home runs a bullpen has given up over their last 7 games. And why do I look at that? Because you could be looking at a bullpen that has a very low WHIP, but they've been prone to giving up the long ball. And if they're facing a team that averages like 1.25 or more home runs per game, that's something that I consider quite heavily when making my decisions. So again, I always interested in what other people's approach is. It may not be identical to mine, but it's something I might be missing, and that goes for everybody out there, folks. You could never know too much. And these types of discussions are why we always like to say, we want to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday, above and beyond just giving you a free pick. Because if you're just here for a free pick, that's fine. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. In the description, you find where we give out that specific game and free pick. At the exact time moment, you could fast forward to it. But if you listen to the whole conversation, you're going to become a smarter sports bettor today than yesterday. Right, Doug? I mean,
I agree.
Too many people lose sight of that we're giving out free picks. They're not at the top of our priority list, although I've been giving out some of my NBA free picks I've been using on the premium side. But my point, we're down to how many games, though? You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
It's difficult to balance taking care of your subscribers to watch you on a daily basis and your subscribers that pay. Okay. So by this time, the subscribers who paid have already got their money's worth, or so you would think. But in any event, Doug, I've been doing a lot of talking today. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, we'll transition over maybe to some NBA action.
Yeah.
And, the first 2 games were, I was on both, but just alarmingly, the amount of how well both teams, all 4 teams shot the ball. Okay. From that standpoint. And it's just, I'd like to think that it's poor defense, but I also I think that's part of it, or I should say poor, not very good defense. But the spacing today in today's NBA is so important. What guys are able to do, and defensively, that just takes away a lot of what's going on. Now, I do believe there's a less of an emphasis on defense than there used to be. I just think overall, especially on a night to night basis, I think it's now more. It's an offensive game, trying to create mismatches, trying to create situations where, like I said, the spacing, which allows people either to drive to the basket, like what is it? The Celtics the other day, first half, 38 points in the paint. Okay,
Yeah.
and they average at halftime, and they average 46 a game. Okay, so I mean, they just had Miami just so wide, and they just were taking them off the dribble because they weren't trying to double team anybody, and they just whipped them in the first half. Okay,
Yeah.
of that game, and then the speed of which Denver tried to play their game one against the Lakers, especially in the first half. They just had the Lakers just backpedaling and just completely off balance. Just running the entire time.
Yeah, and they wore themselves down defensively because they gave up 72 in the second half to the Lakers. So that's the one concern I have with Denver is their defensive play. You look at their overall statistics, Doug, and they're not bad defensively. Actually, they're pretty good on paper. But I just see these lulls they have in some of these playoff games where they're just not defending anybody. The second half of that game against the Lakers the other night was a perfect example of such. And we had some similar type of scenarios happen in their previous series against Minnesota. It's just that Minnesota had no answers for them on the defensive end. But what's your thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, they just seem to, I guess they lose interest, but the intensity definitely drops. And one thing that I saw, and we touched on this recently, which was plus minus. Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing I noticed from game one, and this is something to follow, is off the bench in game one, the Lakers were plus 19, if I remember correctly, and Denver was minus 31 off the bench, plus minus. And for those that didn't see the video when Ross and I were talking about the other day, Ross had mentioned the plus minus. Basically, it's when you're on the floor. Okay, it's the points that you on the floor, the points your team scores and gives up. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a simple explanation. And so when some of the starters for Denver, and Jokic particularly, when he's not on the floor, they go backwards. Okay, and even though they have a good bench, there's just something that's missing, and it was really noticeable in that second half, especially when the Lakers made the big run. And so that's another concern. Yeah, I wouldn't feel good. The other side of it, though, is that here the if you like Denver, okay, especially if you had like Denver tonight, is that the Lakers shot almost 55%, similar to what Denver did. So they gave them their best shot offensively, and it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's how it's going to play out, but it's another way to look at it too.
And beware of the Lakers off a loss, my friend. 6-0 straight up in ATS in their last 6 off a loss. And that includes 4-0 straight up in ATS off a playoff loss this year. And those 4 wins came by 25.3 points per game.
Yeah.
And also the Lakers, as an away underdog of 8.5 or less, coming off a loss, 6-0 straight up in ATS in their last 6. Not only are they the underdog and covered all 6, they won all 6 straight up. So a team, I guess you could label them as resilient. Pretty good recuperative powers, and we'll see if that holds up tonight. I think it will myself. That's just my personal feeling. Go ahead, Doug.
No, I mean, I agree with you there. Here's what took me off the game was this, is that, and I forget the exact numbers, but I did see something along the line in conference finals, teams off a loss have been winning, or I should say, been covering right around 70% and winning about 55%. Okay.
Yeah.
So off a loss. But then the other one that threw me off was game 2, and I know you've seen this as well. Game 2 underdog that just lost they're 5-23.
Yeah, and they're
More recently.
0-11 straight up in ATS since 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's what
yeah,
I
and you know what, Doug, that kills me is because I've been using my algorithms to much success during the NBA playoffs. And I looked at that and I had a talk with myself this morning. Sometimes you have to just trust your professional intuition
right.
more
Absolutely.
than an algorithm, even though it's been going good. You know, when something's going good, you're doing things a certain way and everything's going good. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I hope I don't regret that choice today, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah, some interesting stuff, Doug. So good talk, good conversation, and hopefully it enlightens some of you out there to be a sharper sports bettor. So, all right, so let's get to the games we're going to discuss, my friend, and we'll start with you. You're going to be looking at the Orioles and the Blue Jays, an AL East matchup, and you can give us all the specifics, Doug, and we'll go from there.
All right. So as of right now, Toronto is a -140 favorite over Baltimore, and the total opened at 9.5. Many books are still at 9.5, but I did see some at 9. Okay, from that standpoint. Now, this one, Ross, this is not an easy one for me on this game. I ended up looking at it several different ways. For example, Toronto comes in 13-5 at home going into Thursday night before they play the Yankees. Baltimore is a solid 13-8 on the road, and they're third in runs scored on the road at 5.7 runs per game. Pitching matchup is about perception, and it depends how you want to look at it. So you got Kyle Gibson against this is a
You
tough one.
say Kikuchi.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. You just said it better than I did. But Gibson is 4-3, 4.47 ERA. He's lost his last 3 starts, and his ERA is 6.11. But you know what? His ERA could be 1 because in those 3 losses, Baltimore didn't score 1 run in each of those games. So where are you going there? So now the Kikuchi, good start to the season, but in his 2 of his last 3 starts, he's given up 5 runs. Now in between, he had a shutout of over 6 2/3, but he's pitching more or less how he normally does. Now, if Gibson has been
erratically, that is
that would be correct. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the left-hander, he's been a good luck charm, not only for himself, but also for the offense. He's won 7 of the Orioles. Toronto has won 7 of his last 8 starts, but the reason that they won, not just because of his pitching, they've averaged 7.1 runs per game in those 8 starts this year. So big number there. So, like I said, looking at this, I'm kind of going a number of different ways for this encounter. And so what actually feels most comfortable to me, I don't trust either starting pitcher, okay, going into this game, because Baltimore can score against lefties. Both offenses have actually scored less than 4 runs per game in their last 3. But if you look at their hit totals are up. They're on the rise. So with that being the case, I think there can be some runs scored. Orioles, like I said, they're averaging 5.5 runs per game against lefties. The 2 teams are 12-6 over in Toronto. I think the runs are going to come early, Ross. We talked about, more or less mentioned this. So I think the total is going to be 5, whether it's 9 or 9.5 for the game. I think we're going to get runs. I think we're going to get at least to 6 runs by 6 innings. So for the first 5 innings, I'm going to go over the 5 with Toronto and Baltimore on Friday night.
There you go. And a smart bet at that, because you got 2, like we said with Kikuchi, you don't know what you're going to get from him. You know, he'll have 2 good starts in a row, and you'll say, you know what, this kid's starting to come on. And then he'll have a couple of clunkers like he's had in 2 of the last 3 starts, like Doug alluded to. And Kyle Gibson, is the never mind, former Dodger, for you kids out there. But by the same token, I look at him the same way. He could be so good in some spots, and and then have a terrible stretch like he's going through right now over his last 3 starts. So, and you're eliminating the bullpens. Baltimore's bullpen's been good all year, and Toronto's bullpen at home, a little over 2 ERA and a little over 1 WHIP. So you're eliminating the bullpens in the false hope of getting off to a good start run-wise, and then only to watch bullpens fall apart on you. And you also, in this particular instance, you eliminate you're eliminating the good end of either pitching staff, and that's their bullpen when you equate it to just pitching overall. Anyway, good job, Doug. Very good explanation, and I couldn't agree with you more. He likes Baltimore, Toronto over the total of 5 in the first 5 innings. All right, I'm going to look at my game. Try to do this as quickly as possible. Minnesota Twins at the LA Angels. 9:38 p.m. Eastern time start. Love those 9:38, 7:07 p.m. I don't know why that bugs the living shit out of me, but it does. Anyway, Minnesota's a -125 money line road favorite as we speak, and the total is 8.5. Here's the first thing I looked at and noticed. Today is Thursday. We're recording today, and you're talking about the LA Angels are still have not completed their 3-game series. They may have because it was a day game.
They actually won, Ross.
Okay.
They won 6-5 today.
All right, so they could just completed their 3-game series at Baltimore, and now they have to travel across 3 time zones and play with no rest tomorrow. Doesn't affect the starting pitcher because they always send him ahead of time in those types of scenarios. However, it does produce what I call tired bats on occasion when you're playing with no rest, 3 time zones travel, and you're playing a team that's coming off an off day, which Minnesota isn't playing today. So there's number one. Number 2, Joe Ryan, the starting pitcher of Minnesota. Love this guy. 6-2 in his team starts this year with a 2.16 ERA, and over his last 3, a 2.16 ERA, an 0.84 WHIP, and averaging over 6 innings per start. So this is a guy who's given you the last 4, a 1.08 ERA and an 0.92 WHIP. I was looking at his season totals, and averaging 6.3 innings pitched per start. So not only a good year is he having, but recently he's really come on even stronger. And Reed Detmer, his last 3, 0-3, are the Angels in his last 3 starts, and his 6.08 ERA and 1.80 WHIP have a lot to do with the lack of success. And this is a Twins team that comes into the series averaging 7.1 runs per game over their last 7 games. And during that course of time, they hit 14 home runs. So they're exhibiting some power as well. And the LA Angels, a couple negative stats here, negative trends, I should say. 11-36 since last year. When they're against a starting pitcher that allows 0.5 or less home runs per start, like Joe Ryan does. And 27-54 since last year when facing teams like Minnesota that possess a winning record. So I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins here at the reasonable price of -125 on the road against a tired LA Angels team, Doug.
Yeah, the Angels with that. I mean, Ryan has really, he had a good year, especially in the first half last year, but he seems to have really matured into a better pitcher. Okay, just overall, I've seen him twice or 2 and maybe 3 times, but he's moving the ball around a little bit better. He's got a little bit better command even than what he had last year, and so with that, he can be really tough, especially on right-handers. And so I like what they're doing. You mentioned about the rest thing with the Twins, and the only thing they got to do is go from the north side of Los Angeles down to Anaheim. So right. I mean, so they're basically they are in town. So it's not
and exactly probably in the same hotel, right? Yeah.
They could do that if they wanted to. Yes. Yeah. I think most major league teams probably don't because
no, why would you?
Know what? I know. Well, that's another discussion. But yes, the Angels to me they're just another club. Okay. They have 2 superstar players. They got a bad bullpen. They got pretty much mediocre starting pitching. At best, it's a 500 club. Minnesota is the better team. They got the better pitcher. They got the better bullpen. That's the right call, and the line justifies that when you or signifies that rather by how making the Twins the favorite.
All right, Doug, tell the folks who you like again in your free pick, and then also what you got coming up over at DocSports.com and how you've been doing of late.
Okay, so I got for the first 5 innings, I have the over on the Toronto and Baltimore contest on Friday night. And so, yes, Ross, things have been going pretty good. We're looking at 5 out of 7 winning days in Major League Baseball. So that's trending in the right direction. I mentioned earlier, I had the over in a couple of the NBA games this week. So that takes me to 15-8 recently, a little over 65%, and 45-29, almost 61%, on that. So NBA has been going
Beautiful.
strong and steady for a long time. And like tonight, we got hockey coming back again tonight with the conference finals. In this one, I have a play actually tonight, a 6-unit play, and in 6-unit plays right now, 16-6 run. Okay, and that's 72%. So happy with that. So a lot of good things going on, Ross. Now I know you have been killing it in the NBA. Let everybody know what those numbers are again and whatever else you have.
Well, thank you, Doug. I mean, I've hit my last 6 in the NBA playoffs, 16-5 in my last 21 in the NBA postseason overall. I'm at 34-19, 65%. And my NBA sides, which I have won tonight in the game 1 of the Western Conference Finals series, by the way, that I pretty much hinted who I like. So if you're watching, congratulations, you're going to win. So I got a game there tonight, and also my NBA sides, like I said, 28-11 since the start of the postseason, good for 72%. And right now I'm on an all sports run of 8-2. So I'm feeling pretty good, Doug, feeling pretty strong. And you can find me at rbwins.com. That's rbwins.com. Don't forget to visit Doug over at DocSports.com. Affordable subscription plans. He puts out daily packages, very affordable, folks, and pay a little to make a lot with both of us. That's our motto for today. Anyway, folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's under a new name now. Everything stays the same, but the name, different sponsor, different name. It used to be OSGA. It is now the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel, and we're sponsored by GamblersWorld.com. Don't forget to give us a like. If you haven't subscribed, you'll see that Winner's Circle logo right there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Hover over it, hit the subscribe button. While you're there, go into your YouTube settings and hit the alerts bell, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our podcasts here on this channel being published. Until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, Doug will be back with us on Monday. I will return tomorrow morning with Jesse Shule and Sean Higgs discussing the Boston Celtics Miami Heat Game 2. And until then, and again, for Doug and Ross, we'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best, folks. Take care. God bless. And go get them.